Hey everybody, Grateful Futures here. What if you could identify not only where the market is likely to react, but the exact moment to enter the trade? By combining gamma exposure levels with anchored VWAP, we can find incredibly precise setups like these. Now, GEX or gamma exposure gives us the key prices where dealer hedging can create significant buying or selling pressure, while anchored VWAP tells us the current direction of the market and whether buyers or sellers are actually in control. When both align, we can turn a potential GEX reaction into an extremely precise entry with clearly defined risk. Let me take you through the pre-market prep, the levels we identified before the open, and exactly how we executed this on the S&P 500 today. This is my 30-minute chart of the SPY or the S&P 500 ETF. Now, what I look for in pre-market prep is a few things. I'm always looking at the volume profile of the previous session to look at where most of the volume was traded the previous day. This generally gives us a really, really nice area to trade off of, but it's not the only thing I look at. I'm going to go ahead and mark it off here with an orange box just to show you that this was the previous day's heaviest volume price level. Now, the other things I also tend to look at are the overall long-term volume profile of whatever asset I'm looking at. In this case, it's right here on the right side of my screen, these peaks over here. If you're new to volume profile, GEX, I have basics videos for you guys that will pop up on the screen now, so go ahead and check those out if you're not familiar. But if you've seen my previous videos, I am very interested in my long-term profile at these low volume areas that are separating two major volume peaks. Those tend to be institutional demand zones like we've seen in the past back here. This was our, roughly May through August price action where we had this major low volume demand zone where price was constantly popping off of. And then when we got that higher low, we had a major rip out of that level. We have one of those low volume demand zones forming in this gray box that I've drawn right here. You can see price actually bounced off of it a couple days ago. So that is an area where I am very interested to see if price gets to it. You can think of a very, very high probability that buyers might step in there to support price in this higher volume area above. Now, one other thing I look at is I do use anchored VWAPs on a long-term scale as well. I have one anchored back here to the start of this previous bull run. And these are also levels that can act as major support and resistance zones. You can see that was some support right here. It was support right here. And if since we're below it right now, it's potential that we could either have some kind of resistance off of that level, or if we break through it, it could act as some kind of support. Now, the one other thing I want to show you guys is the gamma exposure profile of the day. This is what the gamma exposure of SPY looked like right around open. Now you can notice that there's a major put wall or negative gamma level right at 765. If you're starting to think like I am, you can see that there's all these major volume levels bunched into one area. So we have our 765 gamma level, we have our long-term anchored VWAP right here, which is also the previous day's point of control zone. This is a massive price level that can either be resistance or we can use it as a target if we get a dip and then buyers coming into the market. So this is the major two price levels that I'm interested in this day is this low volume node gap below, as well as this bunching of a ton of different factors leading me to think that this is a very special area right here. Now, let's go ahead and hop into my 2-minute chart so we can look to see on a shorter time scale, the time scale that I'm actually executing trades off of, and to see if we can see some of these things happening as price develops throughout the day. So this was our open right here. We see that there was a strong push down And if you wanted, you could have taken trades off of this. If you put an anchored VWAP on that opening candle down, you can see it's respected as resistance right here, which gives us a push all the way down to our low volume node gap below. Now, I'm not really huge person that loves to trade at the open. I usually give it about 15 minutes, so I did not trade this, but it was respected quite well. And then we had just kind of some chopping around after that. But what we notice is we have to think about the structure, think about, what is actually happening from a buying and selling perspective, right? We have sellers pushing down into this zone that we know we don't want to short into because we know that that is going to be major support down here in this long-term low volume node. And you can see the kind of buying that we got off of that. But I don't want to immediately long off of this either because, right, we're still technically in bearish market structure, making lower highs, etc. So what I'm really liked to see was when we did get this pop up and then a fail back down. If we can support around here, make a higher low, this is what we call a multi-drive into a certain level where sellers are pushing into this long-term demand zone here, but buyers are not letting them break further into it. Eventually, sellers will give up if they cannot break lower. And let me show you exactly how to find the point to enter where it maximizes your chance of profit. So what I like to do with anchored VWAPs, and I detail this a lot in my previous two videos. If you want to know more about anchored VWAP, go ahead and watch those. But I always like to anchor my VWAPs at significant points where a new trend begins. For example, this is a nice hammer candle that leads to our push down again into this area that we are watching for potential support. And we can see that this is our average positioning of everybody in this downtrend. Now, when buyers step in right here on this hammer candle, you can see a lot of buy volume has actually come into the market there, and we get a nice bullish candle out of that. We can also put a anchored VWAP to the start of this as a potential new trend. Now, how I like to use anchored VWAPs is to determine if either buyers or sellers are in control at the moment. And if we are above the buy side VWAP, then buyers are in control. And if we are below the sell side VWAP, then sellers are in control. If you can start to see where I'm going with this, if we have one that's respected and the other one that's broken, then you can definitely say, like this candle right here, that the sellers that were selling into this area that we know is support have been broken and buyers are respecting this trend. Buyers are now in total control as of this candle. This candle right here that has retested the sell side anchored VWAP above the bullish anchored VWAP. This is where we took our first long trade right here at this candle right here, seeing that sellers were pushing into this major level we were watching, yet they were failing, and buyers are now starting to take over the price action. Now, where am I targeting? Well, remember those levels we were talking about earlier, this major zone up here, yesterday's point of control, as well as the 765 major gamma level that we had marked off from our gamma profile. That is the level that I'm looking to fully exit at. I don't want to trade through the previous day's point of control until price action shows me that it's ready to break. So we entered our trade right here at this candle when we saw buyers stepping in above that sell side anchored VWAP. We put our stop below this buy side anchored VWAP, and we are targeting this 765 gamma level. And this was a easy win for us. Price pushed up the previous stuck buyers that were in here. We can actually look at them through volume profile if we take a volume profile of that. They um, that point of control was broken above, supported, and at this point, I was confident that we would see that gamma level, and I exited fully at that point. Now, we did take one other trade throughout the day, and I want to show you what it is. And it wasn't just taking a reversal at the 765 level, although it would have worked. But let me tell you why I don't love that trade. So if we take a anchored VWAP for a potential sell trend. We see that it is respected actually right here. And you could have taken this as a scalp maybe, but because this 765 gamma level is so strong, Generally we see price try to gravitate towards that. So if I'm trying to short away from that, and then we have, for example, and we still have a valid buy trend here. This is what we call a VWAP pinch, two competing trends, where we have a bullish trend now starting to fight with a bearish trend. It's always possible that this buy side anchored VWAP or somewhere around here, especially because that's tied into these previous highs, it's always possible that we could pop off here and try to attack again our gamma level. So I don't want to go against what the gamma exposure and what the market is showing me. So I did not like to take a short off of that, even though those gamma levels end up being pretty good resistances sometimes as well. But one other thing I want to show you, we did take another trade today, and let me tell you the reasoning behind that. So again, another look at our S&P 500 gamma exposure profile. You can see that there's a kind of a distribution of peaks between 763 and then climaxing at 765. Goes a little bit to 766, but what we want to think about this as our range of play, right? If price is not likely to go to an area that has very, very, very little gamma exposure, very little market interest, it's more likely to stay within that field of play. So where that gamma exposure drops off significantly is around 763, and I don't expect the market to hold for very long below that 763 without the gamma exposure profile changing and opening up more gamma to lower price levels. Now that allows me to think of maybe this will be a potential support if we get there. And another thing I'm looking at too is we had this big opening range that was kind of around that area, and a majority of the traders here were also positioned down here. So that gives us another little bit of confluence that this is a strong area of support should we get there. Let's look to see if we can confirm that with our anchored volume weighted average prices. So the push down into this level is starting about right here. You can mark it off, at the start of this candle. Sometimes, if you want to mark it off here, it's fine. Either one is going to give you about the same answer. But that is our sellers that are pushing down into that area that we are seeing as our bottom field of play. And when we see price get to that level, it starts to make a miniature higher low here, and we can put our anchored VWAP on this area of this low, and that is going to be a potential buy side trend. And then we just wait for the trends, the buyers to confirm that we are again moving back towards that major gamma level that was marked off at 765 up here. And when price breaks those previous sellers and gets above and supports that buy side anchored VWAP, at this point, buyers have confirmed that they are again in control. And we can go ahead and take a long position right here. And we see a bunch of buy volume stepping in at this point, right? That's confirming our strength, and put our stop below that buy side anchored VWAP, and again target near that 765 gamma level. This day may seem choppy to a lot of people, but using gamma exposure and using these anchored VWAPs, you can really, really find some amazing, super high probability, high profit to reward ratio trades. Those are the two trades that I took today. If you guys want, I have a free Discord that is open to everyone. We have a wonderful community of traders in here that have all different kinds of wealths of knowledge about gamma exposure. We have free resources for you guys. I have a whole list of YouTube videos that I'd love for you guys to watch. I hope see you guys in there. And as always, happy trading, everybody.